What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. So this is a blog post that I wrote for a friend of mine, but I wanted to turn it into a video. So I'm just going to get started. My lifelong and ever-evolving relationships with shadow people by Gemma Jade. So I am going to be reading as usual, but a little bit more than normal, okay? All right, bear with me. I know you guys wanted more personal stories, so here is one. This is written in first person. This did happen to me. For as far back as I can remember, shadow people have been a part of my life. My earliest memories of having convulsions and seizures, either randomly or due to extremely high fevers, also include these entities. These are my first memories of them. I was 6 years old and laying on the couch after a particularly bad convulsion with a fever that should have left me rendered unconscious or dead at almost 104 degrees Fahrenheit. I would hallucinate because of it, and I remember so vividly as I lay there on the couch talking nonsense to my dad, who was trying to cool me down with an ice cold rag. Yeah, it was the 80s, so I guess you didn't have to take your children to the hospital if you didn't want to. I don't know. Strange and scary figures stepped into the room. Even at that age, I knew the difference between what I was hallucinating and what was real, at least after the fact. These figures seemed to step right out of the wall. It was nighttime and dark in the room, as the light would only make me hotter and more sick. There was a really tall one, a male as best as I can tell simply by his form and honestly by my intuition. He was wearing a hat and had glowing red eyes. Though he had no facial features and there was no expression to be seen, I somehow knew he had an evil grin on his face. To his left was a much shorter figure. It didn't look like a person, but had the shadowy outline of what looked to me like an animal. Nothing I had ever seen before or since, but it was definitely a pet or minion of the taller man with the hat. It was snarling. Apparently, all of this, the sights and sounds, were only visible and audible to me, as my dad, though seeing the terror in my eyes, acknowledged it only to tell me to close my eyes and try to sleep, and that it would all be okay in the morning. My Irish Catholic father, bless his heart, still to this day refuses to accept my psychic abilities and believes anything having to do with spirit, whether good or bad, is evil and mumbo jumbo. Anyways, back to the shadow entities. The person to the left of the hat man was female. And I'm using male, female, pet because I'm a human. That's the only way I can think to describe them. They really didn't have much of a form, but it's something that I just knew. I just knew what they were. Again, this female had no particular or specific form, but I just knew from the energy she gave off that she was a woman, or at least that's what she was projecting to me. I don't technically think any shadow people are male or female because those are human labels and none of them are human, nor have they ever been, in my opinion. All three of these figures stepped right out of the wall, out of the shadows and the darkness of the night, and all three were lusting after my sickness. They wanted to feed off of my weakness and pain, but even more than that, they wanted to taste my terror. They stayed where they were, just staring at me. The animal thing was growling and making a snorting type of noise. This thing was making gross sounds that somehow made me want to vomit even more. These things were affecting me. My dad finally decided my fever had gone down enough and asked if I wanted to stay on the couch or sleep in his room. I chose his room, hoping these beings wouldn't be able to get me if my dad was there. It seems I was right, too, as once he picked me up and carried me out of the living room, I looked back and all three had slipped once more into the shadows of the room. I went to sleep and woke up the next day feeling physically much better, but an emotional wreck, as I somehow just knew what I had seen the night before hadn't been the figment of a high fever, but very real. I hoped and prayed I wouldn't encounter them again, but those prayers, unfortunately, were not answered. These three figures have shown up throughout my life since that first night so long ago in 1989 that I've lost count. They don't only show up when I'm sick anymore either, as it was just a month later that I saw them again. I was playing in my room with my dolls when suddenly I felt all of the hairs on my body stand up and a cold chill enter the room. Now, as a psychically gifted child, I immediately knew this feeling, only at that point in time I related it to spirit. I thought I was about to have a visitation from the other side. In a way, I was right, I guess, but it wasn't the kind that I had come to know or the kind that I was expecting. I looked up from my dolls into my dimly lit room, and there the three entities were again, standing in the corner by my bedroom closet. Only one of them had eyes that I could see. The pet thing and the woman were simply silhouettes, and for me, that was terrifying enough. I asked them what they wanted, but of course I got no answer. Not out loud anyways. I didn't realize until I was much older and much more advanced with my abilities that I had received an answer that night and always received one whenever I would ask them things. You see, the response was telepathic in my head so as to confuse me and make me think these thoughts were my own. I suddenly thought, why don't I just go to bed? It's nighttime after all, and I'm so very tired. I laid down and fell fast asleep, even with these entities standing there and watching me. And that in and of itself was strange enough. I would wake up constantly in a state of what we now call sleep paralysis, feeling as though I couldn't speak or move or scream out for my dad. I couldn't breathe most of the time, and it was absolutely terrifying. I would try to fight, but of course it was in vain. I could see the woman who would hold me down while the man stood next to the bed and leaned over me, peering into my eyes and not letting me shut them. The pet would be next to me on my bed as if it were my own domestic animal, and I could feel its foul breath on my face. I couldn't turn away. I think this is why I always had like an aversion to dogs. I was completely helpless and at their mercy, but I could hear their thoughts. Eventually, I would just pass back out. Things like this would happen a lot to me, and eventually I became introverted and weird. I couldn't tell anyone what was happening. My dad would never believe me, and the other kids would make fun of me. Fast forward to when I was 22 years old and living on my own. By this time, I had had hundreds of nights like the one I just described, but this is when I finally started researching exactly what I was dealing with. There wasn't much of a World Wide Web in 2002. Everything was pretty much still in its infancy. I would go to the library and look the old-fashioned way, but I still didn't find much in the way of help. It's at this point when I decided to ask my spirit guides to help me, or at least to explain what these things are and what they want. I was told I'm not allowed to know what they are, only that they come from a place that is other, but that I should always remember that telepathy can go both ways. I decided to put this thought, this advice my guides had given me, into action the next time I saw these figures. So the next time they visited, I asked them what they wanted using just my mind. This, of course, wasn't while I was under any kind of attack. They didn't only come during sleep paralysis. Sometimes they just appeared. They came just to lurk and stare and strike the fear of God into me, or so it seemed. By this time, I had 3 children and noticed when I was pregnant, each time I received more visits than normal and was starting to wonder if my kids could see them as well, especially my oldest. It turns out he could. That's another story altogether, though, maybe for another time if you guys want more personal stories. I would sit there and I would have conversations with these beings. I would ask questions and they would usually answer. It's so strange that after all of this, I started to consider these shadow entities, the dead I communicated with on a regular basis, and my guides, my only friends. Is that weird? They told me over time, of course, that they were from another place and time. They explained to me that they were there for my energy. I asked them why they seemed so evil. They said it's only because they would be considered evil as humans perceive evil to be, but that they really weren't, and that I was simply helping them out with something. They explained that the shadow is the only form they're able to take on while in this realm or on this planet. I thought it was all bull, of course, but once I started having these long conversations with them, I found they were attacking me on a significantly less regular basis. I'll spare you the repetitive and somewhat monotonous details of all of their visits from this point until now and tell you about my more recent experiences. You see, it's 2021 as I sat and wrote this. It's 2022 now, but this is when I wrote this. And still I get almost nightly visits from these same 3 entities. The only time I went more than a month without a visit was when in 2016 I was baptized and reborn. I also saw a healer that same week who told me to call out in the name of the Lord when I experienced these sleep paralysis episodes, and they would be forced to leave me alone and stop. It actually works. I somehow summon the inner strength to say the Lord's Prayer, even if I can just recite it in my head, and it always makes them back off. They still come and they lurk. They like to lurk over my 3.5-year-old son. He's also sensitive, but somehow doesn't seem to see these particular 3 entities. Makes sense to me as they explain they were quote unquote assigned to me and not for others to witness. I no longer engage them, and in fact, I pretend most of the time like they aren't even there. But I do see them. When I'm reading oracle cards for friends and clients, when I'm meditating or channeling, when I wake up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water, I walk right past them as though they aren't there. It's been about 32 years now of experiencing these shadow beings, and I still have no idea if anything they told me is true or not. I'm very much of the opinion that they're demonic in nature, possibly jinn, and that the pet is in fact some sort of hellhound. I've since changed my mind about that, and I'll talk to you about it at the end. They're definitely lower vibrational. I'm hoping one day to write a book to let the world know about my encounters and conversations with these beings who claim to only come from a place that is other. I'm much stronger in my faith these days and have fully embraced my psychic self. I have seen other shadow entities, or shadow people as they're more commonly called. In fact, I see at least one almost every single day. They come and they go, and I go on pretending as though I don't see them. I put up protection charms and little spells to keep all evil and negative entities and energies away from me and my family, and it definitely works. Somehow, though, these shadow people still are able to come and go as they please, and they are definitely connected to me and not the property my house is on or anyone else. Nobody else sees them, but I often wonder sometimes if they have influence over other people who come to my house, especially over my husband who lives in it, as the significant and negative changes in his behavior and attitude since I met him are alarming. I'm currently working on finding more about that, like finding out more. I could go on and on and on, and in fact, I think one day I will, in a book or a series of them regarding these three who I call the family, and all of the terror they've provided me throughout my life. The main thing one could take away here is that whether religious or spiritual or not, the Lord's Prayer or any prayer to Him will make them stop their physical and psychic attacks, at least in that moment. I hope one day I'll wake up and the heaviness in my soul that these beings seem to be the cause of is lifted, and I'll immediately know they're no longer with me. I'm not so sure at this point, though, if that will be a huge comfort or a major disappointment, as I still don't know really much about them. They know everything about me, and sometimes they've even alerted me to things that were about to happen to help me to avoid them. This is what evil does, though. It throws you a bone every once in a while so it can say, look how helpful I am. You should definitely trust me. Don't do it, folks. I know many people have told me that they had infestations of shadow people and were able to get rid of them by doing this or trying that. That's awesome. It hasn't worked for me, though. These things are attached to me and have been since as long as I can remember, like a part of my extended family to a degree. I would much rather deal with spirits of the dead, even the ones who come to me looking grisly and horrific. I can easily interpret their intentions. Many people also think that shadow people are time travelers. Maybe they are, but I for one would hate and be terrified even more to envision a point in time in this future of this world where these things roam freely and possibly even have dominion. That's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for more as my conversations continue and my research grows. So I wrote this, I think in like October, November 2021, right? So a few months ago, because it's January 2022 now. But since then, I've actually talked to a lot of people, well, a few people about this, and mainly Lynn Wallington, my interview with her on Spaced Out Radio that I did a few weeks ago. It was either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Go back and check it out. It was awesome. But what I come to believe now is that these could be extraterrestrials. I have no idea which kind, but that I can, like they said, like they can only come as shadow. So maybe they're extraterrestrials. And the reason they visited me so much when I was pregnant is because my kids are hybrids, maybe. I don't know how else to explain it. My one son that's a psychic has a color of eyes nobody's ever seen before, including his eye doctor. You know, my oldest son, same thing with the eyes. RJ is like, my toddler is like super psychically inclined, if you want to say that. I'm constantly charming and protecting my house and property to keep, you know, bad spirits that want to lurk and play with him at bay. So I moved away from thinking there are demons or jinn for the most part. So I'm doing more research on perhaps entities, extraterrestrial entities that could appear as shadow people. So guys, this is my personal story. As I said, I read it instead of just telling it kind of in, you know, story format, because I'm on a little bit of a deadline and I really just wanted to get this out. And someday soon I'm going to, hopefully in story format where I'm not reading, but even otherwise just reading, give you guys a whole bunch of my personal experiences. I know a lot of you really want to hear that, but know that sometime next year, summer or fall of 2020, no, this year, summer or fall of 2022. So this year, I'm putting a book out of just my personal experiences. So stay tuned for that as well. And that's really all I have for you today, guys. Any questions, put them in the comments. No trolling. I won't tolerate any bullying towards myself anymore. I'm just not going to put up with it. But I love you guys so much. Be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything. It could actually make you feel really good. Kindness is like forgiveness. It's for the person who's giving it, okay? But also be kind to yourself and don't accept anything less than others being kind to you, all right? Stand your ground. I'm in one of those powerful moods today, guys. You guys totally motivate me. If you want to see more of me check me out on Saturday and Sunday nights on Spaced Out Radio from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern time for the After Hour show with Big Willie Townsend and John Hudson. It has been such a blast. I'm filming this on a Sunday, and last night's episode, oh my gosh, if you were there, it was hilarious, guys. You have to go on over to Spaced Out Radio. Lynn Wallington, Dave Scott, John Hudson with the Unbiased UFO Report. Come on, guys. You could see me Friday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern time on Paranormal Chop Shop with Chad Smith, Jake Smith, my Sunny Bear, and whoever the guest happens to be that night. That's also an amazing time. That's way chill, way laid back. It's just a fun time. I don't even know how else to describe it. Right here on this channel, Gemma Jade, you can find on Wednesday nights a first come, first served basis where from 7:15 p.m. Eastern time to 10:45 or 11 p.m. Eastern time, I pull one oracle card for everyone who wants one in the chat. I almost always get through everybody. I think one time I had to turn away like 2 people, but it is first come, first served. So if you get there 3 hours in, there's a list, okay? So I am doing personal readings. Just email me at moonbearoracle@gmail.com or gemmajadeParanormal@gmail.com. One or the other. I'm trying to get all the personals, all the oracle stuff over to Moon Bear Oracle, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. I'm still doing them, guys, and there's not like set prices. I just couldn't do them for free anymore, but I still need to do them. So if you want a personal, I'll work with you. It's no big deal. I'm going to do either 3 card, 7 to 12 card, or an actual 1 hour face-to-face. So whatever kind you want, hit me up, okay? I am still available for personals. Also, I'm starting my new channel, Moon Bear Oracle. It's already up. I'm trying to leave the link in the description box, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time doing that. I know at least, I think about 50 of you have subscribed already, which is amazing. If I can leave the link in the description box, I will. Otherwise, I'm trying for the first week of February to have the monthlies up. What I'm doing on that channel is once a month readings for each astrological sign, so 12 readings. Eventually March, April, possibly May, but I'm hoping it doesn't take that long. It's going to be monthly and weekly for each sign. I'm in the process of filming the first videos for that now. There's going to be no comments. You're going to hit me up on email if you need anything. If you have any encounters with supernatural and or paranormal and you'd like for them to be a part of my listener encounters series, please email me at gemmajadeParanormal@gmail.com. My email information, all of that stuff will be in the description box, guys, as well as links to the live streams, one of each of the live stream that I told you guys about, so you can go and check it out if you haven't caught it live yet and you want to do that, like see what it's about first before you go in. Go on and do that. I'll have the links, like I said, in the description box. Also in the description box, you will find links to Amazon for my book, Missing the Fae Theory by Gemma Jade, the Kindle and paperback versions of that. If you want a signed copy, please hit me up through email before you make that purchase. PayPal, Cash App, Amazon wish list, gift link, and my Patreon. Those are great ways to support the channel. To everybody that's been sending me gifts, this week especially has been insane. I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, whether it came off my wish list, whether it was something that you just sent me, you know, personal to you or whatever. Guys, I can't even tell you how overwhelmed I am by your generosity. You know, I just can't explain it, how amazing it makes me feel to know that I have people who, you know, think about me in that way and care about me in that way, that they actually want to give me a gift, you know, never even met me. But I have so much family now. And I just love you guys so much. So please like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, spread the love by sharing, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.